Hello everybody and welcome along to this video, which is Mr. Johnson teaches question 3, how to write about language. And this is question 3 of language paper 1 that I'm talking about here, as it says on the screen there. So this is part of your English language GCSE. You do the 2 papers and we'll have a little bit of a closer look at that in a moment. Be ready to pause this video, make your own notes. That's the best way of revising. Watching these videos is a first step, but I am going to be talking you through some of the processes and giving you some tips, so be ready to write those tips down. So let's get going then and have a look inside the paper. Well, before that, we'll look at the outside of the paper, I should say, because that's what it looks like, paper 1. But actually, what does that break down as? So this is the one where we have 15 minutes of reading at the start of the exam, and this is the one where you've got one source. That is a source of fiction, so that's like a narrative piece, what you might call a creative writing, a story, if you will. And that first 15 minutes is over to you, but I would always encourage my classes to use it reading the thing. Anything that leaps out of them is what they can highlight. And then also you can do some planning, particularly for question 3 in fact as well, but we'll come on to that a little bit later. And then inside the paper, section A and section B is how it's divided. So in the yellow box there, that's section A with those 4 questions, and then section B is the writing section. Each of those is worth an equal number of marks. 45 minutes for the yellow box there, 45 minutes for the green box. And we're going to really focus on, the analysing structure question. So my approach to this question then is one that I've also used for the other questions, question 2 and question 4. So if you watched either of my videos already, or if I've taught you, you should be familiar with this. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. By which I mean you need to be really snappy and quick in the way you answer this. You have 10 minutes to answer this question. And in that 10 minutes, there's a lot to try and get done. So I always say that you need to use this 1, 2, 3 method. First thing you do, identify what the writer has used. Secondly, pick out some evidence. And thirdly, explore the effect. So what does, by focusing our attention on something at the beginning, what does that do? What does that make us wonder or feel or think? So beneath this, what I'm about to make appear now is an example of how this would look in practice. Now notice that they are single sentences really, although number 3 is slightly longer. So number 1 relates to the method in the yellow box there. So what has the writer used? Number 1, the writer focuses our attention on the weather at the beginning of the extract. The phrase focuses our attention is a structural phrase, and I'll give you some more of those in a minute. Number 2, with the downpours that soak us to the skin. So I've dropped in a bit of evidence there. Now, sometimes you'll be able to use quotes. For some structural methods, it isn't possible to use a quote, and therefore it's absolutely fine to describe it. So the first sentence focuses on the weather, actually would be evidence as well. But number 3 then, here comes the effect. This instantly creates a negative mood and makes us wonder if the characters will be safe on their journey or in danger. Now I'm going to unpick what we do for effect here, but what I want to do is go through some of the methods first. And the first thing I really want to say is it is not language, okay? This is a big error that a number of students make, is they spend their time in this question unpicking words. At any moment you will have to use a quote, maybe, and you might have to quote words, but don't fall into the trap of then going, oh, do I unpick the words? For question 2, yes. For question 3, do not explore any of the meanings of words or the effects of words. It's all about why those words are in a certain place, structure. So do not pick apart similes, personification, adjectives or anything like that. Here comes a list of ones that you could look at. So again, you might find it useful to pause this video because I'm not going to go through all of those, although you will find a separate video on this playlist as well where I do unpick what the structural methods actually mean. So there are some there. Generally speaking, you can guarantee that a number of those will appear, but I tell you what, the ones I always can guarantee you, there will always be those 2 ones that have turned red at the top there, because the writer will always start by focusing your attention on something. The first paragraph essentially is always going to be about something, and that's what they are focusing your attention on. In other words, that's what they're making you look at. And then the second paragraph will always be about something different. Therefore, it shifts your focus. So if you can use those 2, you are using structural terminology. And for many students, that's a really big tick in their heads. But how would I go about structuring this? Well, in the 10 minutes you've got, it's going to be very tight. That 1, 2, 3 method I gave you a minute ago will be really useful for that. But also, you may manage to do 3 paragraphs, you may manage to do 2. This is the structure, so focus on the top bit here first. I always encourage my students to say, what does the writer focus your attention on in the beginning? And then paragraph 2, something they shift your focus onto. So that could be it. Now, ideally, if you're working quickly and if you've practiced this question a few times, you then will be able to move on to a third paragraph. What do they focus your attention on at the end? So like, is there a cliffhanger? Is there confusion? Is there a question left in your mind? So those 3 paragraphs are a really good way of doing this. Something near the beginning, something around the middle, something around the end. End doesn't have to always mean literally the final sentence. It could be the second to last paragraph. The middle could be the second paragraph. It all depends on what the extract is. So don't get too hung up on, oh, it has to be smack bang in the middle or right from the end. Now, the effect box down at the bottom, I think, is one of the most useful ones. It's one I use a lot in my teaching because too many students go, and it makes us want to read on, which is just the most terrible thing you could write. I understand what you're trying to say. Yes, structurally, the writer wants you to continue reading, but every writer in the world has written something where they want you to read on. So the effect box is, once you've looked at the thing, the writer focuses our attention on, let's say, the weather. What does it make us wonder? Or what does it make us think might happen? Or, as it says there, what mood or tone does this create? By talking about one of those things as your effect, you are being more detailed. So, for example, it makes us wonder if the characters are going to be safe or if they're going to be in further danger, or it makes us think that the storm may get close and possibly put the characters in harm or danger. So it's those sorts of phrases. Now I'm going to try and model this a little bit for you on my next couple of slides, but I'll just point out on the right hand side, that's just a handful of possible effects as well, like a really sinister effect, a positive feeling, a really concerning atmosphere. So those are just some. You can find more on the internet as well if you do a quick Google search yourself. But those are some useful ones. So now what I'm going to need you to do on my next slide is you're going to need to pause this and read this to yourself before I unpick it. So I'm going to go quiet for a few seconds and ask you to pause this video and read that slide to yourself so you understand what I'm going to say next. Otherwise this analysis won't work. See what leaps out at you. Can you spot the writer focusing your attention on anything? And what does the writer then shift your focus onto? Okay, so over to you for a minute. Okay, hopefully that was enough time for you. So these are some of the things that I would say about this. I've got this here for you. So like this first paragraph from this extract then, the writer is focusing our attention on this figure. We don't know who they are, but it gives us a really grim impression. He sounds horrible. And as I've put there in blue, the blue is the effect here. So it makes us wonder what sort of a person they are, and it creates an instantly eerie atmosphere. It also maybe makes us wonder if they are going to be a danger to other people perhaps, or quite what they're doing in this world. Those questions are all the effect of that opening paragraph. Now I certainly haven't done all of it. I'm underlining bits and pieces. Here's another bit you might be able to focus on then, this next big paragraph down. It shifts our focus onto his basement then, and this basement which is full of stuff or things as he starts to list them there as well. And I've put there, it develops what we know about him and makes him sound quite normal, actually creating a contrasting feeling to that first paragraph. It's almost quite calming, and yet to me something doesn't seem quite right, particularly when you look at this last bit, that we've got this repetition here of stuff, a life of stuff, which was a line which was said earlier near the top of the extract there as well, where it says more stuff. And as I put there, it doesn't make us want to read on. Instead, I've put, it makes us wonder why he's collecting this stuff and what he may do with it. So ultimately, it makes us curious, you could say as well. Now, I've got a little bit more of the extract coming up again. So like before, I'm going to go quiet for a few seconds now. Pause this, just read that to yourself, and then see what I say about it and see if you agree. Over to you. Okay, so with this one again, so we've got a further shift in focus from the earlier bit here as well. He was off to find this more stuff, this toys. These details just make it sound sinister, but also the fact that they sound like they're alive. It creates this really sinister atmosphere, and suddenly we still feel quite concerned. And then we move on to this bit as well. This reveal, when they no longer worked, he simply ate them. That's a massive twist. Now imagine you've only got 10 minutes to write 3 paragraphs. I'd probably do a first paragraph about the appearance of the collector. My second paragraph would be about that bit for me, how it reveals this detail. And suddenly, as I put there, it's really sinister. It makes us curious and also worried as well for these poor children who are toys. Further down, This zooms in on these details as well, like again makes us look closely at the prodding of them, how they skitter about on the floor, he pulls them back. It's a really dark and unsettling atmosphere that's created by that bit. And then finally this ending, and again the red bit, ending is a piece of structural terminology. So it creates this suspense and uncertainty because we don't quite know what he does. It creates this feeling of mystery. All of these feelings that I'm listing here and which are on the slides, those are the effect. So it's much better than saying makes us want to read on. It's those sorts of things which I detailed to you earlier. So from a final point from me then, I hope that's been useful. There's my paragraph structure for you one more time. Ideally going for something beginning, middle and end. You can almost guarantee that you could say how the writer focuses your attention on something in paragraph 1, how it shifts onto something else, and that's what you're going to write in your paragraph 2. And then paragraph 3, the one that you're writing, finally, look at the ending. What happens at the end and what feeling? And one more time, there's the 1, 2, 3 method for you, which I've demonstrated earlier in this video. So thanks for watching all the way through. I hope you found that useful. The best thing you can do now is actually get hold of a past paper and actually practice this. With English language, practicing past paper questions is the best way of furthering your revision. Speak to your English teacher if you need any more help. And above all, check out my other videos as well, which go through other questions. If you feel it's been useful, then why not hit that subscribe button and tell some friends about it and see if they find it useful as well. Thanks for watching everybody, and for now, goodbye and good luck.